I told you roughly how I see the fight going, right? I said Ryan
Yeah.
starts fast, Tank catches up a little bit, and in the middle rounds, and then knocks him out 8, 9 rounds. Tell me how you see the fight going.
Early on, I see them potentially wobbling each other in the first 3 rounds, potentially wobbling each other. And they've both been, in the case of Ryan, he was dropped against Campbell, but even Tank, against Roddy Romero, he was stunned a couple of times. So it's not a case of, neither of them have a defense that can't be impregnated. They can be. I could see both of them being buzzed early, and then a cautioning period for about 3 or 4 rounds where the temperature's taken down just a little bit, just have a feel and a read for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that they'll up the ante. And ultimately, I think Ryan will walk on to an uppercut from Tank. That's my prediction. I think the round 9
An
or round
uppercut
8.
from the front side, from his right hand or his
Yeah,
back?
yeah.
So Ryan
Perfect.
Garcia versus Gervonta Davis, joined with Raf from Elusive 2.0, one of the best analysts in the world. Raf, talk to me about this fight. Tell me about your predictions, and just talk about the magnitude of this fight, man.
No, first of all, I appreciate that introduction, bro. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me
on
your channel as well. I appreciate that a lot. But to answer your question, I see the first few rounds being quite cagey, but the key thing that I'm looking for, and this is one thing I'd stress to everyone in this fight, Ryan Garcia, and normally this is the case with orthodox southpaw fighters, you take the outside foot against the opposite stance fighter because that lead leg acts as a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And when it acts as a wall, you know yourself, Fuad, as a boxer, that needs to be removed. Otherwise, you can't get your shots around that way.
Right.
But Ryan does the opposite. He takes the inside step. So what he did against Luke Campbell was take the inside step so that he could land the jab, and that would buy the time he needed to then land the cross.
Yeah,
and also,
we
got a simulation.
Well, when you're on the inside, when the front leg is on the inside of the southpaw's front leg, leaves a lot of room for the left hook too, which I think that's going to be Garcia's main weapon in this fight.
Yeah, no, of course, and of course, there's Tank countering him as well. That possibility. I do think though that what Ryan does is he lands the jab, because when you take the inside step, if you land the jab, it buys you the time to then land your right hand if you're an orthodox. Because if you don't set up behind the jab, remember his feet are not normal shoulder width apart, they're double shoulder width.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's double the time for the punch to travel.
Yeah.
And naturally, as you know, straight punches beat looping punches.
Of course.
They arrive at the destination quicker. So given that Ryan fights in straight lines, that's one key tactic I'm looking for, because if he can take the inside step, which I imagine he will, if he takes that inside step early on, how does Tank react to that? Because the caveat to that being, Ryan fights in straight lines, but forwards and backwards. Tank's the opposite. He's all about angles. He moves that way.
That's actually why I have Tank winning in more than just one way, is that, yes, Garcia does have, I think it's 2.5 inches reach advantage. But the thing is, Tank already fights like a short guy.
Yeah.
Like, his entire style revolves around him being smaller and him being a big puncher. And I think that's probably the worst possible matchup for Garcia. Because your reach matters a lot when you're boxing like you're fencing, right? Back and forth. Like you just said earlier. With Garcia, it's back and forth.
Yeah.
With Tank, he changes his levels very often. He has to. He's a small guy. He's constantly changing his levels. And when you change your levels against a lanky fighter, it actually reduces his reach, right?
Correct.
I mean, it's just basic physics, right? If like 1 foot in a straight line will travel further than 1 foot diagonally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the reach advantage is only going to be it's only going to be beneficial, or it's only going to work for Ryan's favor in the first couple of rounds.
Yeah. No, yeah.
As far as having his foot on the inside of Gervonta's lead foot,
Yeah.
I think Gervonta is going to be pushing forward. So it's going to be very hard to land, to secure that position backing up.
Yeah.
So I don't see, again, this is how I see the fight going. First few rounds, Ryan is going to surprise a lot of people. And a lot of people are going to change their minds about how the fight's going to go. But as the fight goes on, I think it's going to favor Tank more and more because, first of all, because of the experience and overall the style, And by the way, Garcia has a tendency of dropping his left hand.
Yes.
And if you
Sorry, do you mean the right hand?
Sorry?
Do you mean the right hand?
The right hand.
Yeah.
If he's caught by any one of these punches by Tank, it's a big problem.
No, of course. It has already been in the case of Luke Campbell, no?
Yeah.
And that was one of the caveats for going into this, that people said, if Luke Campbell can do that to you, what's Tank going to do? But what I would say is that I agree with that on the power side, but the way Luke Campbell makes his entries is in straight lines as well, whereas Gervonta comes around the side. And because he's shorter, like you said, the physics element, that could actually mitigate that. He may not enjoy those usual advantages he does against similar sort of height fighters using that specific style. But I do think where Ryan is very vulnerable, that you said, and just to avoid repetition, dropping that right hand leaves a lot of room up here around the left side of his guard. And so there's a lot that's left to the imagination. Would we be in agreement on that, in that there's a lot of things we don't know the answer to?
Of course. Look, Garcia is a good fighter. Like, Garcia is a good boxer, and I tried to look for some type of analysis online. Really, yours is the only one that I found that was really looking into the footwork of Ryan.
I appreciate that.
He is very fast. And he's pretty lanky, but that doesn't land punches. You land punches by positioning your feet in the right place. And that's very, very, I mean, it's great that there's a lot of hype around his speed because he's built like an image, like a super fast boxer.
Yeah.
But really, mostly it's his footwork, but I think, and that your channel is the only place where I found people talking about his footwork. But having those positions is extremely difficult against somebody that hits hard and moves forward, because you can't risk anything. Maybe against Campbell, you're more comfortable standing your ground before you gauge your distance.
Yes.
But against Tank, man, it's very, very difficult to fight somebody that A, knows how to box, 2, can knock you out with any punch from the first round or the 9th round. You know what I mean?
No, of course. And I think one thing I would say as well is that, just to play devil's advocate, I always like to do this whenever I'm debating someone who's pushing one side.
We can't
whoever side it is, I'll push the other.
Yeah.
So what I would say is that, the Gervonta Davis is the shorter dimensions, right?
Mm-hmm.
We saw against Mario Barrios, he likes to jump in with either a gazelle hook or his feet leave the ground with the leaping jab.
You're right. He hops into it. Yeah.
Correct. And what's Ryan's biggest punch that you spent about a minute talking about? That left hook. It's that left hook. So it does make you wonder.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder. Do you know what I mean? And it leaves a lot to the imagination, Fuad. It leaves a lot to the imagination, because if he jumps in the way he does to make up for the reach, that could be good night.
Absolutely.
Potentially.
Absolutely. But here's the thing. You'll never see Tank do that in the first round.
No, never.
Tank will only do that in the middle of an exchange. And he does that when he has you compromised already. He doesn't do that when you're fresh, right?
I've saw him do it once on the back foot against, who was it against? This is really embarrassing. I broke this down yesterday. Imagine I've forgotten. It was against
Gamboa, maybe?
It was against Jose someone. He fought Jose someone.
Let me see. I have the records, right?
You got the records. Oh man.
Let's see.
Jose someone.
It must be an old fight, right?
Yeah, it was around about 6 years ago.
Pedreza.
6 years ago.
Jose Pedreza.
Pedraza, yeah, that's it. Jose Pedraza. He did that. And like you said, you had to go all the way back 6 months ago in the archives to find it.
Yeah.
You know, but on the back foot, that's sometimes a get out of jail wild card, because when you're being backed into a corner, let alone your own corner, there's always that incentive to just leap out if you're someone like Tank, because one thing I've noticed as well is that Ryan and Tank are both flat-footed.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice this with their entries and their exits. Normally, you see short steps. You're a boxer yourself. You know this. On your toes, short steps to circle out off the line when you're trying to pivot out. These guys literally drag their heels in the mud. Their feet barely leave the ground because they always want their feet planted so they have their power under them.
Or their
that
speed,
center of gravity, their balance.
Yeah.
And because they're both counter punchers, this is the caveat. I'm going to come on to that in a sec. This is my issue with this fight potentially. When you put two counter punchers together, someone has to ask the other person out.
Right.
Who's going to ask the other person out on a date if they're both sat there waiting? That's the analogy I'm going to use.
I think Ryan knows, and his team knows, that the earlier he catches Tank, the better his chances are. So I think Ryan's going to push the pace in the beginning. Like I said earlier, he's going to surprise a lot of people early on. I think he's going to have his moments early on, but I think he's going to push the pace, early on. But you know what? I'll give you my official prediction.
Go on.
Okay. They get in the ring. Ryan pushes the pace, and he has his moments in the first 2 rounds. And he might even win the first 2 rounds like clearly, right? Round 3, Tank begins to read him, and I think Ryan begins to respect Tank a lot more.
Yeah.
In the 3rd round. From there on, I think there's going to be some back and forth, but Tank is just slowly going to break him down and probably going to knock him out 8-9 rounds. And by the way, I didn't come up to this conclusion by myself. I spoke with my coach yesterday. Howard Grant. Howard is his brother. And he said 8 to 9 rounds. 8 to 9 rounds. 8 to 9 rounds. I believe that's what you had too.
Yeah. Around about 8 or 9.
8. Okay. 8-9 rounds. It could go a little bit later, but I don't think this fight goes to distance. You get one guy that's really, really fast and one guy that hits really, really hard. There's just 12 rounds is a long time for these guys to be going back and forth at it. You know what I mean?
Of course.
That being said, there is a lot of money in a rematch.
Yes.
There's a lot of money in a rematch, and the only way a rematch would make sense is if Garcia wins. So if this goes to a decision, I think Garcia takes the fight. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think it would make a lot of sense if Garcia wins via decision. You know, the financial aspect of it makes so much sense. You make that fight happen again. You know, I know we always complain about decisions as boxers, but think of the storyline. If Garcia wins, you know, a split decision or unanimous decision, it would be insane.
It would be. It would be. But in terms of the rematch, when do you think it would happen? A year later?
Oof. I mean, hopefully not right away because you would need to kind of build up the fight a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's you would know these things. That's more of your field.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm gonna draw a parallel with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury in that after that first fight in December of 2018, there was a 14-month gap between that and the rematch. In that time, between them, they fought 3 times. So Wilder faced Dominic Brazil and Luis Ortiz, actually 4 times.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Tyson Fury fought Otto Wallin and Tom Schwartz. So in those 14 months, they had 2 fights against other people, and then they had the rematch. Because of how deep a division 135 is, gun to head, I don't see that happening. If I was going to my, I don't see that happening because that division doesn't give you the luxury of having soft touches as much. Whereas at heavyweight, the division strength is a lot weaker than 135. I mean,
You can take fights as a heavyweight, and everybody knows you're going to win those fights. In the lighter weight classes, especially 35, even the guys that we haven't really heard of yet, they're very, very dangerous.
of course,
Yeah.
of course, you know, and we've seen, you know, upcomers as well. Frank Martin, loads of, you know, really new names and
Yeah.
that are coming up, and so yeah, I mean, it's going to be really, really interesting, man. Really interesting.
One thing I want to ask you is, what do you think this does for the division? Because
The division or the sport?
well, actually, the sport, because you know, every time there's a big fight like that, I feel like the rest of the contenders and champions in that weight class, they see the spotlight kind of fading away from them, and it kind of forces them to take a big fight.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
I'm super excited for Devin Haney and Lomachenko.
Yeah.
But Ryan and Tank, it's like it's been brewing for so long. It's such a big fight that it kind of took away from, you know, from that fight from Lomachenko and so what do you think is going to come out of that? Like we have extremely big fights. What do you think happens after that?
I think if you want me to go one by one by the top contenders and who's under what pressure, because Haney became undisputed and then he went to defend it in the guy's backyard with Cambosis.
Yeah.
I feel he's sort of done his hard graft, so
Paid
to
his
speak.
dues.
He's paid his dues. That's the better way of putting it. He's paid his dues. Lomachenko, still, I think he'd feel more pressure because he's coming off the Lopez loss, and I know that was 2 years ago, but since then he's had good performances like Nakatani, but his most recent one, I forgot it, is against the American guy. The name escapes me. Lomachenko's most recent fight, Jermaine. My brain is. Joe, this is the problem, Fuad. You know, when you follow 2 different sports, UFC and boxing, you start saying all these names and surnames that they don't match up.
Jermaine Ortiz.
Jermaine Ortiz. That's it. I said Jermaine. I couldn't think of the surname. Jermaine Ortiz. That's the one. Question marks left after that. Teofimo Lopez is a division up, so I don't put him in this 135 conversation anymore. Shakur, there may be more of an emphasis on him to take risks he otherwise wouldn't, because the onus is then thrust upon him by a result of this Ryan versus Tank fight. So the rest of the division does need to pull their socks up, so to speak, like you alluded to at the start there.
Yeah.
One other thing I would say for the sport is then forced to pull its socks up, because the rumor on the street, word on the street is Spence Crawford is going to be announced on Saturday
No way.
at the fight.
Where'd you
That's
see that?
rumor on the street. They're waiting because, you know, the maximum eyeballs and audience they can
Right.
to promote it. They're going to announce the fight on the Ryan Garcia night and
Mm.
Tank night. In the ring, they're going to announce it. That's the rumor on the street. So if that's the case, then I don't know if you've been reading the papers recently, but Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, Alexander Usyk, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia,
Yeah. All
Prince
in one night.
Khalid, all in one night. Prince
Yeah.
Khalid has picked the fights he wants. So it wasn't even a Joshua Fury, because that would make most money.
Right.
He said, "I want Joshua Wilder."
He's a
And,
boxing fan.
He's a boxing
purist.
fan, you know. So Prince Khalid wants that, and that's what is in the works at the moment. But it's going to be a kick up the backside, because, you know, boxing is the biggest combat sport globally.
Yeah.
It has the most history behind it, centuries of history behind it. But we can't pretend all is well either, because you can't rely on your history to always bail you out.
No.
And where, in the instance of UFC, it's now overtaken boxing in the under 30s age category in social media traction, viewership, and a whole host of other different metrics of pay-per-view buys as well. This has to be the fight that makes the rest of boxing realize, if boxing puts out its best product, it will beat the UFC's best product, because the majority of people walking the street don't really care about grappling and rolling around on the floor. To Ryan and Tank, I think that this will set the tone for what is to come.
Can you tell me?
Past is yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
Go on. You were going to say, you can tell me.
So, I told you roughly how I see the fight going, right? I said Ryan starts fast, Tank catches up a little bit, and in the middle rounds, and then knocks him out 8-9 rounds. Tell me how you see the fight going.
Early on, I see them potentially wobbling each other in the first 3 rounds, potentially wobbling each other. And they've both been, in the case of Ryan, he was dropped against Campbell, but even Tank, against Roddy Romero, he was stunned a couple of times. So it's not a case of, you know, neither of them have a defense that can't be impregnated. They can be. I could see both of them being buzzed early, and then a cautioning period for about 3 or 4 rounds where the temperature's taken down just a little bit, just have a feel and a read for each other. Mm-hmm. And then I think that they'll up the ante. And ultimately, I think Ryan will walk on to an uppercut from Tank. That's my prediction. I think the round 9,
an uppercut,
round 8.
From the front side, from his right hand, or his
back?
Yeah,
from Gervonta Davis. So I was thinking orthodox southpaw, which way round? So that would be southpaw. Yeah, that would be Tank's rear uppercut.
Okay.
His rear uppercut.
Okay. And does he catch him against the ropes or in the middle of an exchange in the middle of the ring?
I think he's going to sip his head on the outside of Ryan's lead hand.
Okay.
And then catch him with the uppercut counter.
Okay.
So sip his head on the outside and then catch with the uppercut. How about you?
Well, I honestly thought like an overhand left from Tank, something that he, you know, again, gets very, very low, reduces Garcia's reach and comes over the top, bang.
Right hand.
Yes, bang. Left hand.
Yeah.
I think it's a shot over the top of the head that Ryan doesn't see, but that's very possible. The uppercut's very possible, but I didn't think about the uppercut that way, because if they're in the middle and if they're within range to throw an uppercut, then most likely Ryan's foot is on the inside.
Yes.
Right. And I don't think you would slip to the outside if your foot's on the inside. You know what I mean?
If your foot's on the inside, that's the caveat though. Yeah, if the foot's on the inside, but most of the time, yes.
Yeah. Yes. But again, like I said earlier, it's gonna be really hard to put that foot where you want it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure, man, for sure. But like I said, you know, it leaves a lot to the imagination. It really
Yeah,
does. And
absolutely, man. The true winner of this is the boxing fans. They're gonna watch this fight.
of course, of course. No, for sure. You know, we are the winners in that sense. But
Absolutely.
yeah, there you go.
Raf, thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, it's my pleasure, bro. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And I can't wait to talk to you for our next prediction, brother.
100%, bro. 100%. Let's do it. Let's do it. 100%.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this prediction. Make sure to toss me a sub, like the video, and check out Elusive 2.0's official breakdown. All the links are in the description. It's got a couple videos about this fight, so make sure to check that out and show the channel some love.